So this is a moment in time podcast season. And when I first wrote that post, I was just like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to meet new people around the world. I want to speak with them. I want to, I don't know, yeah, speak with different people. So it's so interesting that I am people that are coming in and are dropping messages on my inbox are just people that I've never seen in my life, not even on Facebook or Instagram, which is exactly what I was looking for. So I have no idea what we are going to talk about.
I love that though. So much trust in the mystery and what will present itself, hence my pull to the magic as well. So love it.
Exactly. So what are you pulled to talk about?
I did notice, and it's one of those things where I almost hesitate to ask because it seems like such an obvious route to go down, but I did notice that you work in the space of intimacy.
I do. Yeah.
So what's been your journey there?
Intense and fun at the same time. Probably you are talking about the last podcast that I did on about femdom, and it was so curious because I was following that woman for a while on my Instagram feed, and I felt the hit to send her a message to do a podcast, and she immediately said yes. And I was going to travel to Lisbon for a holiday trip, and she was based in Lisbon. And I told her, well, what about if we meet while I'm going there? And she said, yes, of course, come here and you can visit my studio. And I was like, oh my God, that was exactly what I wanted. I wanted to see their studio. I wanted to be there. I wanted to feel the energy. And it was so fun to be there. And actually, talking about that podcast gave me just a wider vision and about what she does as a professional fandom, because she told me and a lot of things that I didn't knew. So it was quite interesting for me to learn about what she does, and also about all those tools and about the world. That is something that intrigues me. Yeah, because there is a lot of it's not a theme or a subject that many would like to expose and talk about, but nevertheless it's something that most everyone has curiosity around that subject, about the kinkies, about the fetishes, about claiming their desires, and it was very, very interesting to learn more about that world. And not to be, I consider myself someone who loves learning and exploring new realms, things that I had never tried before, that I had never experienced before, and I tend to not judge what I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. Let me see how I am going to experience this. Let me see who am I going to be when I'm in touch with this kind of new society, shameful, dark things, as the world of submission and dominance, and the fetishes and desires and claiming desires that normally are considered shameful. Yeah.
I'm fascinated by all of that too. Like for me, working with the shadow and understanding the unconscious and understanding. One of my favorite books that I refer to all the time is Existential Kink by Carolyn Elliott. And just, have you read it?
No, I haven't. No.
Brilliant book. It's essentially the understanding that in our experience as human, it's almost like a trick of the divine that we have become human, and we have this playoff between our conscious mind and our unconscious mind. And this unconscious mind that really does take a lot of pleasure and, secret pleasure in all of the things that our conscious mind finds, unpleasant and almost insufferable.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, in essence, our lives each and every day actually are quite kinky if you think about it from a really super high chunk spiritual aspect. So for me, understanding the shadow, exploring those limits, it's always been something that's fascinated me. And also that interplay with our nervous system.
Yeah.
And just being able to understand how, like what you were saying, like who am I going to be in these spaces and places of actually meeting myself in these fringes, and what does it mean to hold myself there and actually deeply meet myself there? Because that was something that I found interesting, because fetish has always been a fascinating topic to me. And I find that there is often a disconnection from the heart that takes place in the realm of fetish. I don't know what you have found.
Yeah, I can see it too. It's like they're in different boxes. Like a heart is one thing and the fetish is one thing, and they cannot go along together, which is not true.
Yeah.
Which is not true. They actually go along together. The fetish it's within the heart, and the heart is within the fetish, because otherwise we are separating ourselves within, like, no, this is the methods of the art, this is the methods of the kink or in the fetishes, and they are all together.
Usually so. I think that's been some of my deepest preoccupation, is like, how can we meet ourselves? Like, how can we bring into our heart into those spaces of, dark eros, those things that stir us, that, potentially do carry shame or stigma or dogma.
Exactly.
It's like, how can we bring the heart into that and actually invite in erotic innocence again? So really, those conversations that you speak to, just super exciting to unearth and actually get into the depths of it. Yeah, for sure.
Can you talk about more about? Yeah, this is going to be a conversation, so you can pop any questions, and I can pop you any questions if you feel so. This is not, I'm not a host and you are not a guest. We are both just having this moment in time and talking about whatever comes through. And you talk about dark heroes, and that is something that I've been reading on, like, in social media. Like, some people talk about eros, some people talk about dark eros. And for example, I am Portuguese, and sometimes I do have some, not struggles, but like in Portuguese heroes, or in my mental space, in the world of meanings and words that are so specific to myself and to the meanings that I attach to some words. Eros for me is something that is very, it appeals to eroticism. For me, it's something that I'm just popping out right now, that I've never heard before. But when I read the word heroes, or I listen to someone talking about eros, it immediately just comes like it's something erotic.
I definitely feel there's a really strong interrelationship between eros and eroticism. So, that is an interweaving that I think is critical.
But
And
sometimes I'm going to be honest. Sometimes I get really confused when I read a post for someone else, and then I read another post from another mentor or coach. I'm just like, fuck. Now I'm getting confused. What the fuck is eros anyway?
I don't even think that has anything to do with the language side of it either, because I think that so many people have different relationship to eros. I've heard so many different people describe it in so many different ways. And I think fundamentally, like, for me, the way my brain works, I'm always looking for a pattern. Like, what's the common truth? What's the thread that seems to weave through all of it? And then it's like, it really comes back to that relationship to desire, like that pull, the thing that moves through us, that primal life force energy that draws us towards things. I think, fundamentally, that to me would be how I'd translate Eros.
Yeah. And as far as I know, or as far as I am willing to live that eros, that is a part of me that sometimes gets confused. I'm just like, okay, because my mind starts labeling, or starts to trying to understand, oh, is this eros, is this, it's like I'm trying to find what eros it really is, to live according to the eros. If that makes any sense.
Totally. It does definitely make sense. And it's something that I has been a really big unraveling for me. And I think that if there really is, even to take it back to that existential kink part, there is almost like we've created a game within life where it's the peeling back to that truth, to that current, to that thing that is moving us forward. And we've almost created this realm of distraction to really truly experience ourselves in those moments of true connection with that eros. So definitely, I don't think you're alone in that. I think that, the conversations that I have, this is part of why I get so preoccupied with things around energetics. It's beginning to understand those subtle nuances of what is my driver here? Is this coming from that truth, that eroticism? Is it coming from that place? Or is this coming from my conditioning and my wounding and my trauma, or my logic?
Exactly. Yeah. Or for example, like a construction that I've created in my mind, that I believe, that I'm convinced that is that is eros. So sometimes I caught myself navigating in those realms, I must say. And so what would be like the opposite of eros, if there is an opposite?
It's interesting.
This question just came through, and I don't know why am I asking it. Perhaps
I love that. I think it's a great question, because naturally, inherently, all things must have their equal opposite. I'm a big fan of like the Hermetic principles and the law of polarity and duality and all of those things. So inherently, if there is eros, there must be, anti-eros, or whatever the equivalent is.
Yeah, so interesting that it's coming true. So interesting.
And I think, that's that real disconnection from that primal, that desire. It becomes, it's interesting. I talk a lot about the scale of consciousness. I don't know if you know of David R. Hawkins' work.
Which one? Hawkins?
Yeah.
Hawkins, yeah.
Yes. And people say, oh, desire is quite a base level emotion when you look at it on the spectrum. And I think that the desire that is mapped on the scale of consciousness is more speaking to more like what I would call covetousness. Like, when we speak back to like biblical terms, it's that jealousy, it's that envy desire, as opposed to true desire, which comes from that space of innocence and that expansion. So I think almost that opposite of eros is that construct that you speak to, where we think that things are outside of ourselves and away from us.
What do you mean?
Unattainable. So something we'll never be able to reach.
Okay, got it.
It's like we believe that by having what the next person has, we're somehow then be complete and fulfilled.
Yeah. And what eros means to someone is a completely different thing to another one, to another person.
100%. Is that more of a, am I discovering more of myself in this, or am I looking for something to fix me or complete me?
Yeah.
I think that
That,
search for completeness suggests that there's brokenness. And I think that that is more of that construct of desire rather than true desire.
and how do you recognize a true desire from a constructed desire, if I may ask?
It's, for me, it's that really honing the connection to the intuition, being able to listen to the subtlety. So often when things become a preoccupation of the mind, it's that lower, baser form of desire, as opposed to true desire, which is often sometimes illogical. It's just that stirring and that pulling towards something that you can't explain.
Yeah, that's what I felt when I first wrote the post to do this podcast this season. It was something that came just like, yeah, I was sitting at the coffee, drinking my espresso, and I was like, oh, I want to do this. I'm just going to write this post. If something comes in, comes in. If no one sends me a message, that will be okay. But that is exactly what I want to do right now. So I have been receiving some messages that people are interested in and love the idea. And I'm just like, I wasn't see that coming, but it was something so from my core, from my essence, something that I really desired. And I wasn't worried, and I really didn't care if no one showed up. I think this was the first time in my coaching business years or whatever of mentorship that I really created something that was coming really from me, from my essence.
And that's that natural magnetism that comes from it. I think, when I said to you, I just felt the magnetic pull to reach out. I thought, well, let's see. And again, there was much that same of like, oh, I feel something here. I'll put myself forward and see if the resonance is shared. So I feel there's so much, and that's part of why this journey back to essence and eros is so key to everything that I do in my life. It's because it's naturally magnetic. It just pulls things in. It's that vibrational resonance piece that I think is just so powerful and so, magical.
Yeah, it kind of is magical, and it's something. Also, I want to bring this through that. Especially me, I'm talking about myself and my experience. Like, there was this expectation that, oh my God, when I start living my eros, I'm gonna have such amazing and beautiful and magical experiences. And sometimes it's not that way. Sometimes you get to live some painful and some shitty moments when you are in that path. So that is exactly where I am currently navigating. It's like, okay, I'm dealing with this amount of pain within myself that I have been denying for so long because I was, projecting and amplifying myself and doing things that I really didn't want to be doing, but I thought I had to be doing because marketing stuff, because coaching business, because I need to get some money into uh, whatever. And now it's just like I'm being more and more within myself. Um, and that has been such a painful journey. Like the last month, it's like I'm dealing with so much pain inside. And this was the subject that I talked with the last the first woman that I had a talk with for the podcast. It was about pain, so I'm not going to talk about pain unless you want to talk about pain.
Well, I feel like talking to a femdom about pain, I feel like that's probably her area of expertise. So happy to go somewhere else.
If even talking with a femdom about pain, it was so interesting because she said that what she does is not exactly to create pain unless the customer, the client wants to feel some pain. The goal is not to create pain. It's not to induce pain in the client. But most of clients, they want to feel pain because they have such not boring lives, but they want to experience themselves in other levels, and pain actually brings them pleasure afterwards. So it is so interesting to feel that something that we normally avoid, but something that gives us so much pleasure when we feel it.
It's an interesting spectrum. Like I always come back to that Hermetic principle of polarity. It's innate. The more that we resist pain, the more that we also inhibit pleasure.
It is such an incredible paradox.
100%. Paradox is one of, my passion topics. I'm always looking at how resolution of paradox is ultimately how we navigate existence.
Yeah. Let's talk about paradoxes then.
Awesome. All about the paradox life. Yeah, it's and again, that's a big part of why I love magic. Magic is such a big part of what I do because it's a powerful way to understand the universal paradox. Paradox of existence. Existence in and of itself is a paradox. So yeah, anything that empowers me to have new ways and new lenses to apply to that, whether or not that's eros, whether or not that's energy, whatever it is, it's like, okay, how do we understand this mystery that we're all participating in?
Yeah. It's so much bigger and beyond to the mind comprehension.
And I think that's it's almost addictive in a way, being able to have those moments of being able to peek beyond the veil, like to be able to see something in a way that you haven't seen it before, and to see yourself in it. It's like those moments of observation, and I imagine that that's part of the ecstasy that's actually brought on through things like sub-dom relationship. It's that seeing yourself in a different way and seeing existence in a different way. And there's this sense of actually seeing the level of submission that you've given to this larger plan at the same time as being so, on some level, in control of it.
So do you believe you are in control of it?
Again, it's another paradox. We lead down that path. It's like, we are both the creators of our reality at the same time as being participants in it.
Yeah. Got it.
So I guess it's sometimes observing where we've unwittingly given our power away. And when you sort of catch yourself in the illusion of powerlessness, it's like, so it's a kink, it's a fetish. It's like, oh, that's, a little bit exciting, and it gets to be a bit of a thrill.
Yeah. In my experience, like I've been in the coaching business and industry like since 2013, 2012, roughly. Before that, I was more into the energetics, more into Reiki, and to learning more about all those healing therapies. When I went to the coaching industry, I started learning more practical stuff. And I was going to say something and I lost it. Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. Lost it.
So what was it that led you from, because I find the journey from healer to coach to mentor to facilitator really fascinating. What was it that led you from the path of healing or Reiki into more coaching? What was it that spurned that journey?
I didn't like doing Reiki to other people.
Yeah.
That's the truth. I learned, I love doing the level 1, level 2, level 3 from Reiki. But then when I was applying them to my clients, I just hated it. I just
Mm.
hated it being just like 1 hour changing positions. And I was just like, what the fuck am I doing this? I don't like doing this. I did enjoy receiving the Reiki. I did enjoy learning the principles of Mikao Usui and all that is associated to Reiki. But when I was applying to the customers, to my clients, I was like, oh, I don't like doing it. I don't like doing it. So it was like a natural process, because I was always trying to find something to fill up a void within.
Mm.
So I was always looking for something external, but obviously very unconscious. I didn't knew back then that I was doing it. Perhaps right now I'm still doing it, but on a different layer, on a different spectrum. I'm looking for something that I have no idea what I'm looking for. So life is bringing me, people is bringing me circumstances that I'm just like, oh, look, this is happening right now. Well, it's not that it's happening. I am creating this thing right now, so I can see something that I haven't seen before about myself. So I can discover more about me. So I can be in my essence and come home to myself.
Yeah, that gave me goosebumps because it's that, again, it's that paradox piece. It's the self is illuminated through other. It's in relationship with our external environment. It's in relationship with other people. It's that relationship that we truly see ourselves. So it is interesting how it's almost like it's the external that's required to illuminate the internal. So often, as long as we bring it home, like you say, coming home to self. So when people spend too long outside of themselves and not bring it back, that it then just becomes that hollowness. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what I remember what I was going to talk about um, how quick I and often I give my power away in so many circumstances. And I'm just like, but in that moment, I am not seeing it. So it's like I am closing this gap and becoming more faster in recognizing in those moments. That's why I see them as all as a blessing, as vital to my development or to
Mm.
my homecoming, I must say. And there's no other way around. There's no other way around. If you want something, and when I say if I want something, it's not from an attachment. It's like, no, I want to make decisions from my being, from my core, from my essence, not because I have listened or something from outside, not because someone's told me it would be good for me, but because I want to do them. And the more I do that, the the, the gap it's closing. So it's like I'm becoming faster in recognizing those moments. But nevertheless, I still sometimes give my power away. It's not that I give my power away because it's not possible to give my power away, but I can see myself like moving and acting from my condition itself,
Mm.
but like acting from my for what I believe and what I am convinced to be more safe for me, in
Yeah.
avoiding seeing myself in the truth of who I really am. And today, for example, I have an opportunity to claim back that enclose even more that gap. Like a friend of mine, it's a friend of mine's birthday today, and I've been always in her birthday, like she's an old friend, but today I don't want to be there. I don't want to be in her birthday. Perhaps I will send her a message saying that, well, I'm not going to be there because I'm not feeling it's a yes for me to go there. And probably this will create some tension between us. Probably she will get mad. Probably she will, please come, blah, 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 blah. But the truth in my being, it's not going there.
Mm.
You know?
I think that's often a bit of a fairy tale that gets told around intuition and essence, is this idea that once you start living in your truth, once you start following your intuitive knowing, that it somehow gets to be easier. Often, yep, up front, we're confronted with all the places that we haven't been in our truth, like the relationships we've harbored, the unconscious contracts we've entered into around who we need to be or show up as. So initially there is a lot of pain. Like you said, there is, potential tension between you and this old friend. And I think that is, I think, yeah, again, something people don't really speak to enough. When you start personal development or coaching, there is inevitably, there's death. There's the death of who you thought you were and who you thought you needed to be.
Exactly. And the person that she thinks I am, or the person that I think she is, which, no, this is not the way I want to talk. I want to say it. It's like I have grown and I have been developing and I've been expanding. And obviously, my friends, most of my friends that I, in the friendship zone, it's where I still have a lot of matter, a lot of density, a lot, not a lot, but I do have some matter. I do have some density to play with, because the Dalida that they met 1 year ago or even yesterday does not longer exists. So I'm in this continual, not process, but every time I woke up, it's just like, okay, so it's a new day. It's my white Canva or black Canva or whatever. So today I'm going to write whatever I want to write. But that is me. This is how I approach my life. This is how I live my life. And not everybody lives their lives like this. Most of them are still attached to an identity that was created like in the past, like an illusion. And I'm not saying that in a few relationships in few dynamic relationships that I have, I do have that same pattern in thinking that that person is still the same person that I met many years ago, which is not true, because people are always developing and evolving every day. And sometimes it's not that I struggle, but I see myself like recently and quite often in that place. Like, you have to tell the truth. You have to be honest with yourself first, but you have to tell the truth. Your truth. And my truth is not something that, well, I'm going to just start saying whatever I want to say. No, just like, no, I don't want to go, or yes, I do want to go, or even if I'm at a party, I want to leave, and I'm going to leave because that is my truth. And that has been like so fun and at the same time excruciating, because I feel all that uncomfortableness within, like, oh my God, now I'm going to leave. What that person, my friend, is gonna, I don't know, see myself or going to perceive me as someone like who doesn't care about their feelings or whatever, which is not true. And it is true at the same time. The paradox. Like, I do care, but I don't care because right now what I do care is about myself. It's about myself, it's my well-being. It's being true to myself, and that's the only way that someone, even you or anybody that I will know, that I will meet, that will actually see me of who I as who I am, being who I am.
I think so. Like in terms of what you were saying around participating in intimacy, I think gets to be redefined in a lot of ways, because so often the model we're taught is a model of sacrifice. It's like we need to compromise and sacrifice in order to meet each other. It's like, how radical is it to suddenly think of intimacy as that ability to actually deeply advocate for what you need?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think there is that, for me, in so many ways, is true intimacy. And I absolutely loved when you made the distinction between just saying whatever it is that you're thinking versus actually coming back to that place of like, oh, what am I needing? What is my yes? What is my no? As opposed to, because I find people often get that so confused when they start thinking about truth. They start projecting all over people. It's like, that's you running the construct, that's you alchemizing a wound. And like, yes, certainly sometimes in places where both people have consented, that can be a powerful process. However, I feel that so many people run unchecked thinking that they're talking a truth that is really just an illusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that has been my latest field of play. And it's bringing me some pain, and it's curious because for so many years I would label pain as something that I don't want to feel it. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to hide myself. I want to isolate. I want to withdraw. I don't want to meet people. And I've been doing differently this time. It's just like, no, if I'm in pain, I'm in pain. I'm not going to put a blanket on my, hide myself behind under a blanket and avoid and pretend that I'm not feeling pain, because that is not the truth. And that's been so deep, so interesting, because the moment I started like in my day-to-day dynamics, when people ask me, so how are you? And I honestly say, well, actually, I'm not feeling really good. I'm feeling pain. Oh my God, are you okay? What's happening? I'm just feeling pain. No, nothing to save. I don't need your help, so to speak. I'm just feeling pain right now. And it's so hilarious because people don't know how to, or most people don't know how, if they don't know how to deal with their pain themselves, when they find someone who's having pain, they immediately try to save the person, or try to save me, or try to um, make myself feeling better, which is not the case. The pain demands to be felt, and actually, we have to go through the pain and feel it all through. Not because, and that is something that I've changed. Not because I want to feel good, but because it's how it is.
Mm.
I know
Yeah,
that,
again.
yeah, afterwards I will feel better or with less pain, but I'm not doing because I want to be in that state of feeling good state. It's just because it is what it is.
I think,
And
yeah, there is such a pursuit. There is, it's like, it's the objective to be reached always, isn't it? It's like, I'll feel my feelings so that I don't have to feel them anymore, as opposed to feeling the feeling because they're there to be felt.
yeah,
Yeah. So I love that again. And that's, I think I, because I teach coaches, I have a mentorship program, and it's stages of development. I feel that there's that pursuit to not be in pain is required to motivate people to the point that they finally understand that their feelings aren't the enemy. but I feel we all go through, like, because if you think about where the conditioning we've come from, we're a hedonistic society. It's like, how can we pursue more pleasure? And the idea that of pleasure that's fed back to us is this idea that we're going to forever be happy, that we're going to have all the nice things, and all of it's very surface level, as
Yeah.
opposed to like actually truly devoting ourselves to a richness of experience. So yeah, I love that, because but I do feel it's a stage of development. Like, I think there was a period of time where I first realized how objective driven I was. Like, I'm going to feel my sadness, so I don't feel it anymore.
Yeah.
There was some shame attached to that. I thought, oh, I was doing it wrong. And now I'm just like, oh no, I was required to go through that to get to the point that I understand that it's not, doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The tendency to demonize the pain and to feel it faster and get rid of it faster in order to be in a certain state. I had this attachment, like when I'm in pain, or it meant that my energy was low. There was not that I wasn't attracting abundance, that I wasn't being like in a higher state, like in a Hawkins scale, like you were talking about previously. That, oh my God, I'm in pain. I'm going to be miserable. I'm not going to attract any clients. I'm not going to create some money. My magnetism or magic or whatever are so low because I'm feeling this pain. So I have to move through it fast so I can reach a specific state, because in that specific state I will reach whatever the fuck. That was a fucking illusion. And I've been there so much, so many much time.
It's seductive though. It very is. It's very seductive to think that, it's the high vibe illusion. It'd be vibing high to, pull in people. I think, there is so much to be said for truth. What we were talking about before, like, I feel resonance really comes from truth rather than, I guess, sanitizing. We seek to sanitize experience. We seek to sanitize our emotions. It's like, well, how can we be with what's most true regardless?
Yeah, even yesterday, a friend of mine, he was scrolling in the Facebook or in Instagram or whatever, and he was showing me like a profile for someone, and he was like, "Oh, see, look at them, they are so happy, blah 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 blah," and I'm just like, no, no, they seem happy, and that is a very level surfaced posting profile, whatever. But I'm not interested in that. I'm more interested in the depths that are not being shown there. Because we are so, I was really very, I was believing everything that I was seeing on social media. Oh my God, like in the glitter, in the shining, and be this and be that. And I would completely believe what every coach and every mentor would be saying. I was just like, okay, if they are saying, it's because they are the expert. So I'm going to follow their strategy. I'm going to follow what they are saying because I actually don't know. So I'm going to follow that person. I'm going to believe what that person is saying, because if that person is saying, it's because it's truth. So I didn't even had the discernment to check within myself if that was really something that I wanted to do, that I wanted to create.
I've
And so
been
now,
there.
yeah, so now I'm just like, okay, that person, that is true for that person. Cool. I'm so happy for that person. But what about me? What about for myself? Is it true for me? Is this something that I want to create? Is this something I want to do? And most of the times it was a big fucking no. So, oh, so interesting. And having the courage and the willingness to really start putting out what is true for me, what is true for me in the moment, regardless, that is the step into the unknown.
Absolutely. I don't know if you've seen the new Elvis movie that they've just brought out.
I haven't. Is
It
it
was
available? Is it on movies, on theaters?
It's on in cinemas at the moment. We went last night to see it here, and I had no idea really around, I guess, the torment that that man went through in his life. And one of the redeeming, I guess, messages I kind of took away from the whole experience is really what his legacy was founded in those moments of truth. So often everyone that was his advisor, his counsel in those times, in terms of what his next step was to do in his career, whenever he would buck that and follow his heart was when he had a breakthrough. Those were the moments throughout his career that people remember him for. That is how he became an icon. And it was by going completely against the grain most of the time and coming back to this place of, what feels most true for me. So I just really loved, and ultimately, if we wanted to turn it into a bit of a cautionary tale, it was all the times that he went against that really made him suffer in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and it seems like we are going against what people are saying, or others are suggesting and recommending us to do. Like if we are rebelling against what has been taught outside, which is not, but it ends to be like a rebel act of living according to our heart's desires, to our true essence. And for people that are not doing that, we will be perceived as fucking rebels.
Totally. So I think, and also because, society as a whole, it's this idea of understanding of the obligations of living in a society and living in civilized society. It's this inherent contracts that we're meant to adhere to. So this is how you shall participate. These are the things you shall aim for in order for you to participate effectively in this society. So naturally, when we start to listen to the heart, and the heart's not going in the trajectory that society desires us to go, it is an act of rebellion because it's bucking social norms. Yeah, for sure. And that's where it can seem such a threat, because it's this idea of, well, this then becomes counterculture, which it literally is. It's counterculture.
Counterculture, exactly. A toast to more people doing that.
I'm here for it. It's part of, what I love to create. So, yeah.
So what do you love to create?
For me personally, I'm really going through a big journey myself and probably dealing with a lot of pain of coming back to that place of how much I have been a cheerleader for others. Probably the last good few years of my life. It's been very much about how can I support people in their homecoming? How can I be the person that helps step them home, be there to hold their hand and illuminate the path. And that being something that was so powerful for me to participate in the creation and the co-creation of, to then coming back to, if it's not about being the cheerleader, if it's not about being the person that lights the way, what do I want to experience? Exactly. So that for me is the big unraveling that makes my heart feel so raw right now. It's like, what do I choose for myself?
Yeah, because I just started following your Instagram account before we opt into this conversation. And I just read the first post you did. It was like 6 hours ago. And you were talking about meaning, finding the meaning. You want to talk about that? You want to go through there?
So it was interesting. I was listening to a podcast with Jordan Peterson, and he was talking about his journey to meaning as opposed to happiness. And it was something that really hit home for me. And I think that, when I think about that cheerleading journey, that for me was meaning at that time. Because I experienced the death of my late husband 4 years ago. He died of pancreatic cancer at the age of 36. And my whole life kind of got turned upside down. I went from being, a mum and to his two children. So I was a mum to two stepchildren that lived with us full time and also caring for him when he was sick, to suddenly being on my own. So it was like, well, who am I outside of, what I've been before? Like what is my truth? And it was that navigating back to truth. And I think in those moments, what felt most powerfully alive for me was how I could be there for others. It was this idea of how I can serve, how I can show up. And that felt most meaningful to me. So despite necessarily being happy, because I was journeying phases of deep grief, it's like it felt like I was contributing in a meaningful way. It's just like, oh, my experience gets to empower and support others.
Your experience according to that period of time when your husband died, correct?
Now so more, but I think because at that point I used to be in the fitness industry, so it was somebody that helped people with personal training and nutrition and all of those things. And nutrition and fitness had been such an anchor for me throughout his sickness. That was like my time, because I hadn't really done a lot of personal development work as such. I was involved in a lot of behind the scenes kind of coaching. I didn't even realize it was personal development. I was kind of like, just did a few sessions with my coach that I've been seeing since I was 15. Didn't even think I called her a coach. I just called her by her name because I didn't know a coach was a thing.
Yeah.
So for me, the most powerful anchor really was that ability to come back to my body. So that was what kept me in the fitness industry. I'm like, wow, if I can just allow other people to have this outlet, to come back to their body through exercise. And then that kind of led me deeper down the path, because I was like, wow, these people are achieving these things that they want with their body, but they're still not happy. And I was just like, well, what's there then? And that was all got me preoccupied with actually diving into the personal development side of things. Because I'm like, well, if it's not the body, what is it then? And just diving deeper and deeper and deeper into the, what creates meaning, what creates, happiness.
And for you, what does create happiness?
I think now sitting here, I think happiness, it's sterile as an answer as this is. Happiness is a state. It's that idea of I really like when people talk about love as a state.
Mm-hmm.
You're not necessarily in love with someone. You're in love because they allow you to access love within yourself.
Mm-hmm. I see that.
So much in the same way, it's like happiness is that ability to be able to access happiness within yourself.
Yeah.
And I think so much of that happiness is being able to be present to what's occurring in your life. I think, what so much of suffering is when we detach, when we become the observer, too far removed, and not even consciously observing, most of the time numbing and disconnecting.
Yeah. I'm not a person. I have never searched for happiness. It's like it was never something that people around me, and even in the school, they were like, oh, what do you want to achieve when you are a grown-up? Most of them would reply, would answer, I want to be happy. And I always felt happiness, because for me it was such a foreign concept, and I didn't even knew what happiness meant. And I had no idea what those people around me back then were actually looking for, aiming for. It was not what I knew was they are looking for something that they believe will bring them happiness. And I remember being like 13, 14 years old, and I was just like, that is not even, I remember having this thinking process, that is not even possible, because happiness is not outside. I wasn't even in the self-development industry. Actually, internet was not even a thing back then. So, but I remember having this thought, like, that person wants to be happy from something outside that does not make any sense. Although I'm a person that I have been searching for satisfaction,
Mm.
always to feel satisfaction. That has been my main theme throughout my life, being feeling satisfied with the things that I have, the things that I own, the person that I am. That has been my main theme. Although sometimes when I start thinking about satisfaction, what satisfaction is for me,
Mm.
sometimes it's like just waking up and putting my makeup is just, I'm feeling satisfied about that. So it's not something that it is never outside like happiness, and it's something that um, it's not supposed to to be in every day in my life, in all the moments of my day. It's something that I'm in touch with.
I think that's a healthy way to look at it too, because I think, again, like we mentioned earlier about the richness of experience, like I think, any state experience for too long, like, such, again, paradox, too much water, you'll drown. If you drink too
Exactly.
much water, you'll drown. If you, breathe too much air, you'll hyperventilate. Like, it's, everything is in moderation.
Like not being obsessively searching for something that it's not even possible to be in all the time, because every moment requires and asks you to do a different move, asks you to be a different being. Situations are always you are or as at least as I see myself, things are always happening, and I'm creating them in order for me to become more of who I am. So if I'm not satisfied right now, it does not really matter. Something I will create something afterwards that perhaps will bring me satisfaction or not, but that is not the goal. The goal is to live all the experiences, even when I'm not satisfied with them, even when I have nothing, even when I completely lost my shit, even when I being in that state and enjoying that state as much as I can and living it, not trying to avoid it. That is something really outstanding.
Absolutely. And I think that, that coming back to before with presence and being in it, as opposed to detached and observing, it's that being able to hold, again, the paradox of being in it and also seeing yourself in it. Because I see sometimes that where people can err is when they become so associated into their emotional body that they're no longer able to discern. So I think, that's that next phase of being able to kind of be with yourself in your emotions, in that being true, while simultaneously understanding that we are an infinite being that has decided to have this experience for such a brief time on earth. So it's like, this is both real as much as is my soul that is eternal is real.
So truth, infinite beings, no end, no beginning.
Mm.
So cool. I am okay to end up this talk. Do you want to talk about something else? Do you want to bring
Yeah, that
something
feels
else?
good.
Feels good.
It does. End with infinite beings. Like, it feels great.
Infinite, no ending, no beginning. Just experiencing the layers of being and creating whatever we wish to create, we want to create to ourselves.
Absolutely. And yeah, that malleability to understand that we're always ever changing. The downward pressure of the downward pressure of ultimately things coming into existence inevitably forces change. So nothing is fixed.
As I see it it's like I am who I am within my core. My essence is like unmovable. It doesn't change. What changes is the amount of density and the matter that I choose to play with that are removed from my energetic field, that I become so closer to me that I don't want to leave myself anymore. I don't want to abandon myself anymore. Like the example I said to you earlier, like today I'm not going to be my friend's birthday because I'm first. My well-being is first, and I don't want to go. So stick to the truth.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't want to go. Perhaps in a couple of hours, the energy shifts, and perhaps I want to go. But right now, I don't want to go, and that is sometimes what it's most challenging to navigate through.
I think, it's that permission to come back to the wisdom of children. Children are so in tune to what's moving, and we condition ourselves out of it. It's like, I want that, I don't want that, I feel this, I don't feel that. It's like, it's just, and we go through the loss of self to navigate back to that.
Yeah. So cool. Jessicka, it was so nice to meet you. I loved talking with you. It was such a beautiful conversation.
Thank you so much. So beautiful to connect with you.
Yeah.